Hello, this is Alex Calvo Garcia. You're listening to the Iron Hour podcast.
Hello, Iron fans. This is another episode of the Iron Hour podcast. I'm Max Bell. Andy Butler is still living it large with his work in Sweet Home, Alabama, so I'm your still temporary host of this week's episode. For anybody watching on YouTube, you'll notice that I've come dressed as a pair of curtains. I'm currently in a hotel at Stansted Airport prior to going out to Australia to hopefully watch England win the first test in Perth for cricket, which is something that Marco does not understand in any way, shape, or form. So he's relieved that Barra's not here. Otherwise, this might have become a cricketing podcast. Very, very happy to say that we are joined by, obviously, Marco, because I've referred to him. But we've also got a very special guest for this evening's podcast. Thank you very much to Dylan for joining us. How are you keeping, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Just been enjoying being part of helping create some content and looking forward to hopefully pushing more stuff out there, and especially on the journalism aspect and written work.
Excellent. Very, very glad to hear it. Let's hope that you're still enjoying it in about another 45 minutes' time. And Marco, I hear on the grapevine that you might be feeling significantly poorer after you've done a bit of shopping for sort of a big life event. Is that right?
Yeah, there'll be no wedding talk. Much like cricket, there'll be no wedding talk. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Welcome to Dylan making his debut. But yeah, for anybody watching on YouTube, Max is truly a sight to behold right now with full blend of curtain, wall, and blind. It's phenomenal. So yeah, happy to be here.
It's even the hair as well. There's just red everywhere at this moment in time.
Yeah, the interior designer has had Max in mind when creating it. So it's a sight to behold. So if you are on Spotify, I'd suggest having a flick through onto YouTube after.
Right, on that bombshell, let's get cracking. I just want to thank our regular sponsors and partners here at the Iron Hour podcast, without whose support we wouldn't be able to bring you sort of the regular content that we do, both in terms of the podcast, but also some of the written pieces, which it's been really great to have people guesting on. So thank you very, very much to our regular partners, Best Banks Wholesale. Gareth is currently doing quite a bit of work for them ahead of the Christmas period, I believe. Also to No Film, AC Videography and Photography, and also Hole in the Wand. So thank you very much for them. And just to cross it off the list before we go, because as people will know, it is International Week this week. So we don't have an FPL update because there is nothing to update. But we do nonetheless want to let people know that there will be an update next week. And we'll give a big shout out to our sponsor, our FPL sponsors, which is the George in Barton, who very, very kindly donated a £100 bar tab to the winner. So once everybody gets back from the international break, Marco will bring us a bumper update on the FPL next week, won't you?
I'll be collecting my £100 bar tab shortly. No, I think I read the other day that I think they're giving extra substitutes for the African Cup of Nations, which is very welcome. So yeah, all still to play for. There's not much in it at all. So still up for grabs. But yeah, looking forward to after the international breaks. I don't think anybody really likes it, unless you're Scottish from what's happened this evening, because McTominay has scored an absolute worldie, and at the minute, they look good to go through. So, yeah.
Or Irish.
Or Irish, yeah.
Yes. That absolutely wild scenes when Troy Parrott scored that winner.
Anyway, moving on from international football, please.
or if you're Norwegian. But yes, as Marco has hinted, we're actually recording this slightly earlier this week. We're doing it on Tuesday evening rather than on Thursday, which means two things. One, the second half of the Scotland versus Denmark game is happening. Oh, the refs just give Denmark a penalty.
You get live updates.
God bless VAR. Obviously, this live update being 24 hours after the fact for most of our listeners and viewers won't be much good to them. But for us, it's absolutely thrilling. Nonetheless, see, look, Marco's watching it now as well. He can't resist.
I'm not actually. I've got Sky Sports News on as per. But unlike some very bitter people, I hope Scotland go through.
I've got no comments for the next 45 minutes. And particularly as obviously even if they don't win, they are set for a playoff place. And I do genuinely like Steve Clarke. Actually, I do think he's a good manager, and he comes across as a reasonably decent bloke. And let's face it, it appears to be Rasmus Højlund taking this penalty, so there's no guarantee that he'll score.
Oh, I'm just a VAR check. Anyway, let's talk Scunthorpe.
Yes, absolutely. Dill.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the Irons so far this season have quite significantly exceeded expectations. The fact that more than halfway through November, we are still very thickly ensconced in the playoffs is more than most Iron fans were hoping for. However, on Saturday, away to Solihull, it was the first real bitter blow of the season in terms of the performance and the result, perhaps. What was your reaction to the 3-0 defeat?
I think for me personally, shock more than anything. Because I didn't see it coming. I know after the game, Andy said he didn't see it coming. I don't think there was a Scunthorpe fan who saw that coming personally. I know for me personally, like you say, my anticipations going into the season were, consolidate, and we've now obviously seen that that's gone out the window in terms of, look, we're going to more than do that, and it's about just pushing up as high as we possibly can, and taking the opportunities when they come. And I do think that it wasn't a good performance. However, the first two goals especially, I think you could put them down to goalkeeping errors personally. Um, in my opinion, I do think that, I mean, Rory's only a young keeper. He's a young lad, and he's not going to be perfect every game. No keeper's going to be perfect. I know plenty of people had a lot to say about Watson when he was here. However, I do think we'll miss him more than not now he's gone. And I don't think he was as bad as some people probably thought at all. So, I do think, with a young lad coming in goal, you're always going to get the odd mistake here and there, and it's like I say, it's never going to be perfect. And with second loss, I think it is of the season. So, I think you can probably say, I'm not saying we was due a loss. However, you can't. We're not going to go one loss all season, are we? We're going to lose games. It looks bad because it's 3-0, but Rochdale are going to drop points this season from now until the end. So are Forest Green. So are Boreham Wood. We're all going to drop points. Yeah, it wasn't great, but I'm sure we'll come back against Braintree, and we'll probably beat them on Saturday. So I do think that as much as it's not great, and some decent players were missing as well, I think it wasn't our best team. I think it's one of them where you just have an off day, and some things don't go your way, and I think we'll bounce back from it. Andy and the lads, have performed amazing this year so far, so I don't want to be too overcritical on what's been a pretty impressive season so far.
Yeah, Marco. So Dylan mentioned there a couple of bits there. Obviously, we go into half time at 2-0, but then Solihull have a man sent off, and at that point you start thinking, oh, hang on, can we get back into the game? There's a bit of huffing and puffing. We did have a couple of moments, a couple of chances at 2-0, and it just didn't quite drop for us. What do you think behind closed doors Andy will be saying to his players? Would he be criticising them, or would it just be a case of forget about it, move on, just look to Braintree, or a bit of both?
Yeah, I think a mixture of both. Look, that first half performance, albeit with key players missing, like Dylan mentioned, it wasn't good enough. It really wasn't. I thought at the time, I thought the sending off was possibly harsh. Looking back at the replays, I think it is a dive, and it's probably, it doesn't get said enough. It's good refereeing at this level, so credit where it's due. But yeah, I think Butler would have, knowing Butler, I think he would have had a few strong words. And again, he can only put on the field what is available to him. And look, I know we're in the playoffs. I know we're in a really good position, but when we say it, and when especially when he said he didn't see it coming, I think they've surprised me recently. Still picking up points from games where we've not particularly played well, and I think barring Blackpool away, where the performance was good despite losing, I don't really think we've came out of second, third gear other than York away, or since York away. Sorry. So when we say I didn't see it coming, I think it's maybe that boot that we need. Um, Look, obviously, it's not how I wanted the wake up call to happen. But I do think that has been coming. Maybe not to that extent, but I think it just shows how much we're relying on the key players like e.g. Evans, Ewing, who arguably the best player in the league, and obviously Roberts, who's we know has got that moment of magic. So yeah, worrying how much we are seemingly reliant on those players. But like we said, we've got a 7 point cushion into the playoffs. It's a good opportunity on Saturday to get minimum 3 points. And I think Butler will be the same. We'll be wanting
What do you mean? What do you mean minimum 3 points? How are we coming out with more than 3 points?
a minimum. I don't anything less than 3 points. To me, a draw on Saturday is not a loss, but it's a missed opportunity because look, Braintree down there. We've just been speaking off podcast. They had a good result on Saturday, but look, we need to be dispatching teams like Braintree at home after a bad result like that. So it's up to us. It's up to us to. We've got the platform, and look, we need to go out there and put a really big performance on because Saturday, like I said, despite the injuries, just wasn't good enough.
So, well, just one final question before we move on from the Solihull defeat. What murder by the Moors or murder on the Moors, whatever you were thinking of calling it, Marco.
You'll see on the podcast title tomorrow. We're in discussion.
So I just want to place the Solihull defeat in the context of the last three games, Dylan. So obviously we've gone to Solihull, we've not scored. We beat Yeovil at home 1-0, but that was a defensive error, really. Don't get me wrong, good attacking play to force the error and win the ball, but if you're Yeovil, you're very disappointed with that goal. And then the game before that, we go to Blackpool, create lots of chances, but we just couldn't score. So that's now only one goal scored across the last three games combined, and it was a defensive error. Do you think that's a temporary blip, or do you have concerns about us struggling in the final third to take those big chances when they come along?
I mean, I think it's definitely a worry. I mean, one of the things that I was saying when we started the season is that, going forward, we look quite good. And I do think that, especially like with the players that we've got in our team at our disposal, especially at home, you can normally always count on us, like, having scoring maybe two or three on occasions and hitting teams heavy with goals. I mean, obviously with those games, obviously, traveling away to Blackpool, obviously we created a lot of opportunities, but it was, again, it was Blackpool and context and things like that. But like you say, the Yeovil one, it was a defensive error, and I would say it's a worry again with Braintree not being able to take those chances, and I think it just shows more worry in terms of how when we do lose a few of our key players, how we do tend to struggle to create the goals. If Robertson in the side, things like that, we do struggle to put chances away. And I think it's definitely something which, I think Butler and Co will probably be looking at, you think, with the market window and things like that, and potential to bring in a body here and there. Because I do think if we go into Braintree and we don't score a goal against a team which is down the bottom, I'd say that's definitely cause for concern. To have the goals all of a sudden dry up, all of quite unexpectedly, I think it would probably hint at that to the board that maybe we do need to invest a bit more heavily in the attack, in getting some more quality, which I think all fans would probably say we do need. Obviously not everybody's favourite, not one of my favourites, but when you're letting players go out to other clubs and you're letting attacking players leave, no matter how good you think they are, you've got to replenish those bodies and bring players in that are going to compete for those spots. Otherwise, players don't have that competition. and performances and tend to drop off. So even just to give other players to step up their level, 1 or 2 levels, having competition for bodies and place in the team is beneficial, in my opinion.
So I think that wraps up the Solihull situation. So we'll move things along a little bit before we sort of deep dive into preview of the Braintree game on this Saturday. Marco, obviously earlier on we mentioned that we were recording on a Tuesday rather than a Thursday. What are you doing on Thursday?
Oh yeah. Well, you're not here because you'll be down under. But yeah,
I think
no,
after a week in Australia, my skin's going to be red as well. It's
it
going to be the whole curtain.
and you'll be watching possibly one of the worst sports on earth. So it's going to be a rough old couple of weeks for you. But yeah, no, we are attending the FCAs. Again,
which are, for anyone who doesn't know the jargon, what's the
the
FCAs?
be all and end all for football content. But no, look, it's we've been nominated in the non-league podcast section. So yeah, look, delighted to be mentioned. We'll be at Ellen Road on Thursday. We'll be all suited up, and look, we're going. We know we're not going to win anything. It's but look, to be in the category, we've been only been going a couple of years. We're in the mix with some absolutely huge podcasts that have been going 20 plus years. Um, and look, to be in the same category as some of the names is outstanding. So yeah, to be in the mix, yeah, we're very humbled, and we're looking forward to a good night, no matter what the outcome. So yeah, that's why we were a little bit early this week. So you get your Scunthorpe fix ahead of Braintree a couple of days early. But no, looking forward to Thursday. I'm sure there'll be a couple of pictures, maybe me on the dance floor. But yeah, no, looking forward to it and a good night. And once again, yeah, just when we set this up, award shows were not our intention. So yeah, really happy to be there and looking forward to it.
Excellent. And for anybody who's been living in the cave for the last day, obviously, whilst we've been recording, Denmark have scored quite a controversial VAR penalty. But then the ref decided to even things up by 4 minutes later, sending off a Denmark player. So it's all happening on the international front, which is why you can see me sort of craning my my neck to try and see what's happening on the.
So there's been a red
TV.
card. There's red card, red skin, red wall, red curtains.
And red t-shirts for the Danish players, and clearly a bit of red mist as well for the lad who's been given a red card. Right then, let's move things on to Braintree. Obviously, we mentioned the fact that, well, two things really, which is that they are down there. They're currently in the 4th relegation spot, if you like. So 21st on goal difference, following their victory against Truro at the weekend. Dylan, obviously they've, Braintree are sort of down there, if you like, but looking at the squad and potentially one recent signing they've made, we think they might have a little bit more quality going forward than you might expect from a side down at that end of the table.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we mentioned before we started Emmanuel Thomas in a recent signing, and obviously, they've got John Akinde as well. Both of them scoring at the weekend. I know they beat Truro. I mean, you'll struggle to find teams that don't beat Truro this year, but I think it just adds to that worry of when we're in a bit of a form where we're struggling to score goals, and you're coming up a team that you would probably say has got a okay-ish attack at this level, attack where you probably think, there's a chance where they could get a 1 or 2, and I think it will be a slight concern. However, even when you look at their recent form, they haven't been winning games, but they have been scoring one goal, the odd goal here and there. So definitely wouldn't be putting it down as a high scoring game. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, but but I think it's something to be wary of. But I think we'll be all right. I think with that.
Now, Marco, obviously we touched there a little bit on the threats that Braintree might have going forward. So let's flip that on the head for us and look at our situation defensively. Now, we're expecting Andrew Boyce to be suspended for the game on Saturday. His yellow card against Solihull was his 5th of the season, so Boyce is likely to be missing out. A, do you expect that to be a big hole and a big miss for us? And B, if you were Andy Butler, how would you try and plug that gap?
Yeah, without a doubt. I feel like you'd argue, well, you wouldn't even argue, it's common knowledge. Evans and Boyce are definitely your first two centre halves. I feel coming up against somebody like Emmanuel Thomas, who has that lower league nous and obviously played championship level and played to a good standard. Having somebody like Boyce and Evans who, with that physical side and can really get amongst it, would be very beneficial. Whereas now it looks like we're maybe going to go into the game with two players that, I mean, Horton will be centre half, you'd think, but he's not a centre half. And well, that's not to say he might not be a centre half in future, but he's very unproven at centre half. He's done really well when called upon. And then I suppose your other options are JB to come in, or I know we keep saying Rose seems to be 1 week off every week. So yeah, I don't actually know when he's coming back, but yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what he does with that back four because I know previously in games we've had sort of a mismatch of the back four where 3 out of 4 was in the wrong position. I don't think that'll be the case Saturday. I think he'll just try to go as strong as possible. Possibly Denton, Horton. I think he'll go JB at centre back, and then obviously Starbuck out wide. So yeah, but it'd be interesting. Like I said, with John Akinde is a really big target man, and obviously J. Emmanuel Thomas causes really big threats. So two players that you would Evans and Boyce to both be fit against, and we're missing both. So it's gonna be tough. But yeah, like we said, I know we haven't been scoring goals, but you hope we've got enough in our tank to outscore them on Saturday.
Yeah, and then just speaking about potentially outscoring Braintree, Dylan. I look at the Irons squad in the game against Solihull. Obviously, no Ewing, no Roberts. Do you do you feel like that's a case of we really did miss those players? The players who came in for them perhaps didn't step up in the way that they had done in previous games, and will you be keeping all of your fingers crossed and all of your toes crossed that at least one, if not both of them, are involved in the squad in some way against Braintree on Saturday?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's definitely a reason as to why there was such a big drop off. Because obviously it's no hidden secret that those two are probably two of our, if not most important players in the team, or two of the best anyway. And I do think that, like you say, in attack, you do lose a special player in Roberts. There's, like you say, player who could have got moves away if he really wanted to and chose to stay at Scunthorpe. So I think it just shows how much quality he possesses, and Ewan in that midfield as well. I think he does just bring things together, and he sort of conjoins the attack and joins up the attack and the defense with the midfield real nicely. So I do think that those were big misses, and I am hoping that one way or another, at least one of them is available in the squad on Saturday. Preferably, I'd like to see Roberts back in the team because, like I said, we all know what he can bring, and I think we just need to get a win, get back to winning ways again, back at home. And if Roberts can come back and have a good game and get a goal and assist, bit of confidence for him, and just get us back on track again. Because, like you say, haven't really since before Blackpool, we've not really got back to our decent form like we were doing in our stride again. So I think that's probably thrown us off that Blackpool game a little bit. So I do think a good result against Braintree, no matter how big the scoreline, just 1-0, 2-0 consolidated performance will do me just fine. Where we can just say, you know what, that was a comfortable victory, didn't cause any problems. playing them off the park, and we got our goal end of 3 points, and that'll suit me just as much as a 3-4 nil personally. Just as long as we get a comfortable win, with no sort of controversy in there.
Yeah, and obviously, sorry, Bax. I know Dylan mentioned Robert. I think Roberts is the more likely of the two to be featuring. I know Butler mentioned Ewing's having scans and he's not trained. It's obviously so annoying because it is just a toe injury. But yeah, I think Roberts will make that difference. Obviously, we know his past injury record, so you can't rush him back. But I know for one, Butler isn't playing a player if he's not 100% fit. So yeah, I think he makes a real good point there.
Yeah, and then just one final question before we move on from Braintree. Obviously, on particularly on social media, one of the Iron players who, rightly or wrongly, did get a bit of criticism was Chadwick, playing in the middle of the park. Now there was no Keen Scales on the bench. Obviously, Ewing injured. However, there was Alfie Beeston in there. If we say, Marco, that if Ewing's toe injury doesn't heal in time, would you still perhaps be surprised or not surprised if there were a little bit of shuffling the decks in the middle of the park?
Yeah, so I had Humberside on at the weekend. Ollie Turner actually worked out that Scales wasn't on the bench due to a suspension. But a lot of the sort of pages or information websites didn't have him down as picking up 5 yellow cards, but he had, which is absolutely wild considering he's not started many games this year at all. So coming off the bench and just picking up yellows as he has is
very Italian of him, I would say.
Yeah, skills here. But yeah, so just to clear that up. But yeah, look, Chadwick got a lot of flack. It wasn't one of his best games.
But he was in good company. Like I don't think you could turn around and say that lots of them played well, unfortunately, because, well, let's look at the scoreline.
I fully agree. When I posted the ratings on Sunday, I expected some.
Oh, speaking of scoreline, Scotland have scored. It's 2-1 at Hampden Park.
There you go. We get Jeff Stelling and a Scunthorpe podcast. What more do you want? But yeah, that's it.
Has there been a red card that I've missed? Can I be Chris Kamara?
But yeah, look, I think Chadwick was poor. But as you say, any of the play, I think Mahadi, obviously Dylan mentioned earlier, wasn't his best game. We're not going to throw him under a bus. He's a young keeper. He's bound to make mistakes. But yeah, look, it was a really with Chadwick. It's hard to know his best position, and I don't think he's got the pace to play out wide. Out wide, when fully fit, is probably our strongest area. You'd argue, obviously, Roberts, Fleming, Howe, all really strong contenders at that position. So it's a really Eze even, who hasn't really featured. But yeah, we seem to just have these two or three. I know Beck's gone and he's obviously scored this evening again. But we don't seem to really have a place for or know their best position. So yeah, it's really tough. And look, it's Saturday, like we said, it's got to be a mixture of it wasn't good enough, but we just need to move on from it.
Right then. Speaking of moving on, I think that's as good a segue as any. Obviously, we've had one eye on the international football, but in even bigger news, Big Bad Beck has scored tonight for Alfreton. He's found the back of the net again in their FA Trophy replay away at Gainsborough. I certainly saw on Instagram earlier on this evening that a couple of Scunny fans have actually made the trip down the A15 or up the A15, depending on if you're coming from somewhere else, to go and watch that one. One other quick plug before we move on to our predictions is obviously you will have seen a couple of months ago when Scunthorpe United announced their Voice of the Fans initiative, where they were getting a variety of supporters of different ages and different backgrounds involved as their voice of the fans. I know people included in that have been, for example, Eloise Nichols, Ryan Ashmore, really, really well-known and well-liked supporters. I believe they've set up a Twitter account this afternoon at SUFC Voice. I'm seeing Dylan nod when I say the @, and that's good enough for me. Reliably informed that they're going to be doing all sorts of sort of engagement and consultation activity with supporters. So do go on to the various social media channels and give them a follow. As I suspect, there might be some quite interesting stuff happening with that. And then one final thing before we get the predictions is just in terms of the car park situation. Obviously, that's had quite a bit of traffic.
Pun intended.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was worth it just for that. It's 2-2. The Danes have equalised.
Oh my god!
A classic. I'm sure that situation will develop. Supporters may not necessarily be surprised by the news. Obviously, under the ownership of Peter Swan, there was some previous planning permission to build houses at the back of the car park, in the corners near towards the footpath through to Lodge Moor. So we'll keep a close eye on it. I suppose as Iron fans, but I think the most important thing was that the club got the ground back and sort of has a really, really solid base for the future. So very, very much looking forward to things off field for the Iron going on from strength to strength. Now then, Marco, you sounded relatively optimistic for the Iron's chances on Saturday. I know you're going to be on the Donny Road end. You shaking your head?
No, I'll be there. I'll be fairly lubricated, but I'll be there.
Right then. So let's get your prediction now, as opposed to when you've had 7 pints. Give me a score prediction. Be brave.
I'm going. Every time I made a prediction, everyone went, "Oh, Marco's gone 2-0." I do think 2-0. I think Roberts comes back in, and I think he bags one. And I also think Whitehall comes good. I'm going Roberts and Whitehall. 2-0. I am.
Excellent. Very good. I think we'd all be very, very happy with that. Dylan, what prediction are you going for? And it's not allowed to be 2-0.
See. Do you know what? I'll go 1-0. I'll go steady Eddie 1-0, I think. And I think it'll be, I won't be like the over one. I think it'll be a comfortable one, Well, I can almost guarantee we'll miss some chances because we'll always miss a few. But we'll 1-0 and it'll be a good defensive performance. Won't cause any problems, and I think it'll be one where we'll build on that after that, and I think it'll take us from strength to strength. I think Roberts' assist. I was going to say Whitehall, but just because you have, I think maybe Beasting comes back in and gets a goal, or if could be Evans potentially. I think
Evans is going to be long. I don't think we'll see Evans for a long time.
JB then, JB.
Okay, excellent. I mean, you've taken it up a notch there, Dill. Not only have you given us the score, you've given us who's going to assist it.
Yeah,
and you've got Evans coming out on crutches and bagging one.
Well, that'd be a dream. That'd be a dream.
Well, look, if he does play, then I'm going to start asking Dylan for lottery numbers. That's all as I'm filling in for Barra, I will do what Barra usually does and go for 0-0.
Do you think that?
Well, I actually fancy this a bit against Solihull. So that goes to show what I know. I perhaps, as was hinted at by my question, I just worry about a little bit in front of goal. We'll see if Roberts comes back. We'll see if players are able to last. I'm still not convinced that Danny White was 100% fit. Look, he's really, really important to us. So time will tell. But yeah,
I think obviously
it all. Go on. Sorry. I think it all depends purely on if Roberts is back. For me, I think if Roberts comes back, and I think that gives us a really good chance. If not, then I do think you probably do edge on the caution of a draw, maybe. Because I think, like you say, it's must not lose. And to be honest, if it was sort of any other, if we weren't going through this thing of struggling to score goals at the minute, I think I probably would have said it's probably a game where you think just a win and we rinse and repeat type performance. But I think it's one of them now where we just got to just calm things down a bit and just get back to winning ways. And just, I think, like you say, Braintree is probably the perfect game we could have at this moment in time. where you can just go into it at home as well. We'll always get a strong following and backing at home, and they'll get behind them. I don't think Braintree will bring many. Not many teams bring many away fans in this league. So I think, like I said, I think it'll be a comfortable game, and we'll be conservative in these predictions, and then we'll go out and romp them 4-0. So
I hope you're right. I just think it's very interesting. We're talking obviously about Ewing, particularly when it comes to goal scoring. He's obviously not that much of an assister or a goal scorer, but I just think he gives you that base and that platform for that front three, whether it be Fleming, Howe, Whitehall, or if Roberts is coming back in. I just think we're a lot more assured and comfortable when Ewing is on the pitch. And I think it does really have a big impact. I mean, a big conversation on Twitter, I'm sure you've all seen it this week, is like, we shouldn't accept not being in the playoffs now. And to be fair, I'm probably on that side at the minute. And look, I'm one of the ones who said mid-table at the start of the season, but looking at the standard of the league, and when we can get our best 11 slash maybe 2 or 3 changes, obviously not to the extent of a weekend, I really do think we're as good as anyone in this league. So yeah, I think look, I don't think it's a secret. We maybe do need 2 or 3 bodies in, like we said earlier. I agree with Max. With Whitehall hasn't been the Whitehall that we know for a numerous amount of games, but I don't think the whole team has. Like I said, since York. So yeah, look, Saturday's going to be really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to it. I just hope we can get it over the line and get 3 points on the board.
yeah, I think that's fair. Like you say, I mean, with the whole playoff thing, I think it is a debate. Should we settle for anything less than the playoffs now? And you know, you any other team, you'd probably say, you've just come up, just be grateful that you're up in the league and staying up. But I feel like with the aspirations that we've all got as fans and as a club and where we want to be long term, you know, and the board are not stupid. They're fans as well, just like we are. They want to be back in the EFL just as much as we do. They maybe didn't expect to be in this position right now so quickly. However, I think they'll be looking at it and thinking, we've got to give it a good go. And we've seen with teams at this level before, you don't get these chances all the time because it's not long before players don't give you long before they move up the level, like players like Roberts and Ewing, and Rose when he's on his game. We're not going to have these players around for long if they keep performing the way they are, and if we stay in this league for any longer than a few seasons. So you've sort of got a year or two maybe to have a good fair crack at it before you're having to rechurn the squad again. So I think you've got to act when you're in these positions, and I think it's fair to say that anything less than the playoffs right now it'd be disappointing if we finished outside the playoffs personally. And like I said, the league isn't as strong as I thought it would be either. I mean, you look at 2 of the teams in the top 6 came up so I think that just shows you where the league is at. And there's teams that come down which haven't been great either, in like, for example, Sutton and things like that, and Morecambe, but they've had their own issues as well. So I think it's all to play for, and we've shown that we can beat anyone when we've got our team fully fit. The Forest Green game away earlier this season, many would have said they're the best team in the league at that point, and other than like goalkeeping error, that was the difference between us and them, and a draw and 3 points that day. I'm just sure that when we play Rochdale, we'll look great against them. Played immense against York, and like you say, on our day with the best team that we can field, we're a match for any team in this league. The best team, or one of the best for me, I think that we've faced still is Boreham Wood. I thought they were good when we played them. But then you look at the other loss we had against, which was Carlisle, and we had 10 men for however long in that game, and I don't think they were massively anyone decent. And now people say that they're the best team that they're facing this league. So I think it just shows the quality, and it just shows how good we are and how well drilled Andy has them playing. Because Andy's faced his criticisms as well since becoming manager, and not many would have backed him to even get to this position at points last season. I think people forget that there was a lot of people calling for him at times, not saying they were right to be, but last year when we were struggling and it was five at the back and people were saying things have got to change or we're not going to go up, and you look at it now and I think he's been more than justified in the way he's gone about things, and I think he's clearly he knows his stuff, doesn't he? And I think we need to keep hold of Butler now. It's a weird thought now that you look at it and you think we need to think Butler can't leave us. So it's crazy how much it can all turn around so quickly, and you know, you don't want to be grateful for where we are. You want to push on and aspire to get back in the league, and I think the board have got them aspirations. I think they're just because we don't hear anything, don't mean they're not working on it in the background. That's what I will say.
Right then, speaking of working on things in the background, thank you very much to everybody for tuning in, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify. Speaking of aspirations, good luck on Thursday. Bring the trophy home, or you'll have to stay in Leeds. Hopefully, be able to bring you another podcast at some point next week. Not 100% sure how that will look just yet, but I'm sure we'll sort of keep in touch on social media. One other final point is that it looks like Morecambe are about to beat Brackley 2-0 at home, so it goes to show that sides in the relegation zone can pick up points. Take nothing for granted as Iron fans, but yeah, very, very much hoping that.
And also, Beck scored again, so I don't know what we're going to do. World's going to end, or
I mean, we need a goal this weekend.
And it looks like Scotland have just scored a 93rd minute winner.
So if get on the book fast,
and if that and Mark Beck doesn't show you that crazy things can happen in football, well, yeah. What else is there to say?
That is crazy. Yeah, I'm happy for Scotland.
Excellent. Right then, folks. As we say, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for listening. We'll keep our fingers crossed ahead of the Iron at home to Braintree on Saturday, when hopefully the 3 points will be staying at the Attis Arena. And look forward to giving you another podcast as soon as we can. Up the Iron.